Hey, what's going on, music producers? Now, in this video, I wanted to cover convolution reverb and sampling from vintage gear. You know, convolution is a really cool concept in music production because you're basically accentuating the frequencies that are shared between two things. One of those being the impulse response, which is sort of like capturing the decay of a room, the sound of a reverb, and combining it with the audio that you pass through it. So most DAWs will come with some kind of convolution reverb. You can usually tell if you can just drag and drop samples into it. For this reason, I call it a sample-based reverb. And hybrid reverb, which is oftentimes maybe overlooked by Ableton users, is the convolution reverb that Ableton provides. And if you can sample a reverb, I started to think, why not sample vintage gear or just any kind of gear that you have? For me, I've had this old beat up RE201, the Roland Space Echo, really famous Echo unit. It also has a spring reverb in it that has a really distinct sound and a really cool delay sound. And while we're on that topic, Ableton also has the Echo device. And so I had to make a video about this. Can we emulate it with Ableton's Echo? And can we use a convolution technique to sample from the RE201 and get cool effects chains? And I found you absolutely can. It's going to be really cool. Check out the sounds. I'm going to show you how to do this technique for yourself. And as usual, you can just download everything I've created in this video in the link in the description below. And so I guess the first thing is just trying to use Ableton's Echo device to sound like what my RE201 Space Echo kind of sounds like, the delay signal. So I went in and just tried to do a straight emulation using the Ableton Echo module, and I tried to match the tonal reflections of what the RE201 does, kind of on a medium setting, so that's why the time settings are where they're at. But of course you could customize that however you want. And it came out sounding pretty close, not exact, but pretty close. To be honest, I'm kind of blown away with how well these parameters work. It's hard to match the analog magic of the original unit. The wobble feature is actually really close to what is happening in those reflections. I was really impressed. And you can obviously pause the screen and copy these settings if you want. Again, I always put a link in the description to everything I create for my Patreons, but I'm just really amazed at how well this device worked at copying the sound outright. And here I'm taking a step further using these two LFOs to tag onto the shifter, which is a pitch shifter module for Ableton, to actually create the sound of what my own unit does, which is probably a defect or something that needs to be repaired. But as those delay signals continue, the pitch modulates in the signal kind of randomly and radically. I'm actually really happy with the way this came out because I find when you kind of put a little bit of pitch modulation, maybe a lot, maybe a little, maybe fast, maybe slow, but it adds a really cool vibe and randomness to the sound, especially on something like a guitar track. Now, where this gets really interesting is you can also sample from the reverb and the delay itself. And this is where we get into that whole convolution thing that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So right here, I actually have sampled from the spring reverb in the RE201. I just hit my guitar and recorded the sound of the decay, which you can hear right here. And I obviously did that also with the delay signal. Now, both of these things you would call impulse responses because you're really just hearing the decay sound from some kind of impulse. Now, if we go into the audio effects and then hybrid reverb, we can literally just drag and drop this into this little yellow area right here. You'll notice that when you pull up hybrid reverb, a lot of people miss this reverb in Ableton. It has convolution IR here written on the bottom and has different types of samples here. So you can actually go to things like real places, and these will be, you know, samples from other places in the world, I guess, other locations, and these are the impulse responses from those locations. So it's really cool. And then you can literally just drag and drop straight from here. You can download impulse responses. I put mine online from the RE201, and now I just drag and drop it in, and then you can run in parallel, serial, or just pick one or the other. There's different algorithms in this reverb, and the reason why they call it hybrid reverb is you can combine it with something like dark hall or quartz or the classic shimmer, which is typically an octave up, diffusion-y sounding reverb sound, tides, prism, they all sound different. Or you can go in series mode, or you can just go with the convolution straight itself. And you also get an include EQ, which is useful for a spring reverb because sometimes it can be a little pokey in the mid-range. So I like to kind of go in here and customize it that way. It's really fun. You can run this in parallel with the audio effect rack. So you can have something like a guitar rack if you wanted to add on the sound of the spring reverb of an RE201. You've literally just recreated it. And I'll just play some quick little presets right now from that. You can also do this, by the way, with a delay. And when you drag and drop it in, it creates kind of a murky delay sound when you use convolution with a delay signal or a delay sample. And but it totally works. So yeah, let's take a listen to some presets on guitar. And so yeah, you can obviously take this a step further. Using convolution, you can combine the original impulse response that we got from the spring reverb on the Space Echo with other reverbs. So you could combine that spring with a shimmer reverb, get something like this. You have a long room reverb with a longer decay. Even combine the spring with a plate reverb. And you get a cool sound, and all these things can be dragged and dropped right into hybrid reverb. And you can obviously use the EQ, shape it how you want, use these different parameters. Really cool. And I actually found that the magic of this sound comes from combining together the reverb signal and the delay signal. You get all the character, but also the control from using Ableton Echo, and then combining that with the convolution reverb from the original unit. And you just get really cool sounds from it. You're really capturing the essence of that unit. But you know, if mine ever breaks down, which I'm sure it eventually will, a lot of this older gear just breaks eventually. You have it preserved in some kind of way, at least through Ableton's devices. And I was just really amazed at how well this worked and how cool these patches sound. And I just save these in my user library. I drag them, drop them into my sessions on my guitar tracks. And I just immediately get the vibe, at least, of that piece of gear without having to ever turn it on, which is really cool. And so yeah, again, the link down below is to all the presets that I've designed around this unit. And I really think this technique is really useful and powerful for creating original sounds from your own gear. So I hope you found this video useful and inspiring. And don't be afraid to sample your own gear. You know, a lot of people have cool reverb pedals, different kinds of things in your studio. Don't be afraid to sample it and use convolution to get cool effects. It's a really cool technique. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more of this content. Thank you guys so much for your support on the Patreon. It means the world to me. I'll see you in the next video. Have fun making music.